I am a 24-year-old female who quit my job to be a stay-at-home wife a couple of months ago because my husband, a 25-year-old male, was working two jobs and I felt like I needed to hold down the fort at home. I was working as a receptionist and wasn't making much anyway, so it was an easy call to make. He took up a second job because he wasn't satisfied with his income in sales. So he took up a job for the evenings as well and wouldn't come back home until really late. My husband and I have been married for 2 years and have been together since we graduated. Neither of us comes from a particularly well-off family, and once we graduated we were on our own. My parents had made it very clear to me that I needed to make my own money, because now it was time for them to save for their retirement and they couldn't keep funding me anymore. And I was okay with that. My husband was an only child and his father passed away a year after our marriage, and he'd told me that his mother had passed away when he was just 9, so he had nobody to count on anyway. It took us a while to become financially stable, but for the past couple of months we had been doing reasonably well. I used to feel bad because my husband was working 2 jobs, so I quit mine and started doing all the household work, so he would have a nice home to come back to after a really long day of work. This had been going on for a couple of months, and I didn't think that there was anything that I needed to be suspicious of. However, a lady claiming to be my mother-in-law showed up at my door while my husband was at her just a couple of days ago, and that changed everything. I'll call this woman Sally. She looks around the same age as my mother-in-law, and she matches the few photos of my mother-in-law that my husband still has in old photo albums. I was shocked when she introduced herself, but there was no time for explanations, because she just barged into the house and told me that she had something very important to discuss with me. She brought out a bunch of photos and spread them out on the table before I could say anything, and then she dropped a bombshell on me by telling me that my husband was apparently a sugar baby for a couple of women, and that's what he spends his day doing. She showed me the pictures, and sure enough, all of them were of him being hugged or sitting close by women I didn't recognize. And all of them looked a couple of years older or around the same age as Sally. I didn't even know what to say, but Sally powered through and started telling me that she was sorry to barge in this way, but she had to come to me as soon as she found out. She told me that she knew that I'd probably been told by my husband that she was no longer in this world. But that was not true, evidently. Apparently, my husband's parents had been divorced because of my father-in-law's infidelity, but my husband chose to live with his father all year round after he turned 13, even though they had partial custody. She found out in a couple of months that this was because my husband had taken up smoking pot at that age and was in very dangerous company. His dad was working most of the day, so he didn't have enough time to keep an eye on his son. And even though Sally insisted that he at least try to be more actively involved in his son's parenting, he didn't seem to care much and said that he would get out of that habit eventually. That didn't happen, and by the time my husband was supposed to be in college, he had become a total stoner. His grades were slipping, and he had no prospects whatsoever. This led to a lot of fighting in their family, and my husband decided to cut her off because he didn't like the fact that Sally tried to intervene and get him out of his habits. He did clean up his act eventually, because he didn't want to get caught in college with pot, since that would lead to a lot of legal trouble for him. But he never spoke to his mother again, and after a couple of months she stopped trying to get through to him too. He pretended that he didn't have a mother at all because of their bad relationship, which is why he lied to me. She told me she found out about me just recently and had to do a lot of stalking and digging to find out where I lived. Apparently, one of the women who had been spending time with my husband had told her friends about it, and that's how Sally found out. She said that she found out through a friend of a friend, and when she saw a photo of them, she realized instantly that this was her son. She knew that he was married and had been for quite some time, so she decided to go looking for me and tell me the truth, because she was sure that her son hadn't told me anything. And she was right. I was in shock because everything that she was saying was just a lot to process. In one afternoon I found out that not only was my mother-in-law well and alive, but I also found out that my husband was entertaining other older rich women for money and not actually working 2 jobs like he had told me. I was disgusted because I thought that my husband was an honest man, but that was not the case. And I felt like I barely knew him after Sally's revelation. I wanted to think that she was lying, but the photos were right in front of me, and I could tell that she had gone to a lot of trouble to obtain these pictures. And there was no way that she would be lying to me about something like this. She stood to gain nothing. I thanked her for what she did, and then she left me alone to think about this for the rest of the day, until my husband came back home. He finally returned at around midnight, and the first thing that I asked him was about his work. And he told me that everything was great at work, and he believed that we could actually move into a bigger home soon if we saved up enough. So then I decided to ask him which of his roster of women he had spent time with today, and how much he got paid for it. His expression changed, because he knew that he was caught now, and there was no way out, and I knew the truth. He didn't even try to deny it and just asked me how I had found out, so I told him that it didn't matter because at the end of the day I knew where the money was coming from and I knew what work he was putting so much effort into. I had promised myself that I was not going to let him see me cry, but I broke down into tears and locked myself in the bedroom while screaming at him at the top of my lungs, until I finally wore myself out. He didn't say anything while I was screaming and let me shout at him until I was finally done. Once I fell silent, he started talking and told me that I was misunderstanding everything. He told me that apparently this was not a sugar baby relationship and he was not hooking up with these women, but he was just spending time with them since they were mostly lonely widows, and they just wanted somebody to be there with them, talk to them, and spend time with them in a completely platonic and non-intimate capacity. He said that he had heard about a website from a friend of his and had checked it out. He signed up for it only because he knew that he wouldn't have to get involved with any of these women, romantically or otherwise. It was all safe and legal. And it technically wasn't cheating because he was just providing them with companionship. He said that it paid well, probably more than he would have been making at the jobs that he said he was doing, and he just wanted to make me happy. He knew that I was struggling with money, and he couldn't find jobs that paid enough for the kind of lifestyle that I wanted, so he was really just doing this for me. I argued with him and told him that I didn't care about the money, and that what mattered to me was that he had been lying to me for months and been making a complete fool out of me. I couldn't come to terms with the fact that not only was he lying to me about this, but also about his mother. And if he could lie to me about these things, even after we got married, then there was no telling what else he had lied to me about. I told him that Sally had visited me early in the day, and had told me the truth about everything, including how he was a stoner in school, while he had always told me and maintained that he had never even tried it. He kept saying that he was sorry and that he would quit this job and get off that site, but it really meant nothing to me because I didn't trust him anymore. And I said that I trusted him anymore. He insisted that he had done everything just to make me happy and to be able to provide me with everything that I wanted, but I didn't care. And so I left that day to go live with a friend of mine until I knew what to do next. It's been 4 days now and I still have no idea what I want to do. I haven't even told my friend about the truth, and I just said that I had a big fight with my husband and I wanted a place to live for a couple of days until it blew over, because I didn't think I was ready to come out with the truth. It was embarrassing and shameful, and I didn't even want to accept it in my own head. My husband has been texting me every day, and he even told me that he deleted his account and has cut ties with all the women that he was spending time with. He said that he has even started looking for a real job, one that I would approve of. I haven't replied to any of his messages yet, mostly because I don't even know what to say to him anymore. Yesterday I tried to talk to my parents about this, and while initially I didn't have any intention of telling them the whole truth, I just couldn't help it, and I ended up confessing everything to them. They heard me out, and the only thing that they had to say to it was that I needed to talk to him, sort things out, and move on because that's how marriages are supposed to work. They said that they could understand where I was coming from, but they also realized that my husband was just trying to make me happy by bringing home a considerable income, just so I wouldn't have to be worried about anything, and instead of looking at things negatively, they wanted me to look at the positive side of this and work things out with him. Honestly, I didn't understand what they were talking about because I was concerned there was no positive side. He had lied to me for months and betrayed me in ways that I didn't even think were possible. I'll admit I have been a bit of a freak about our finances in the past, but that wasn't something that gave him the license to go out and do something like this. I was already feeling annoyed after I got off that phone call with my parents, and my husband chose that very moment to send me yet another text, but this time he wasn't being apologetic. He said in his text that he was tired of apologizing over and over again, and he wanted a straight answer from me about where our marriage was headed now and if I wanted to divorce or not. Because he felt like I was overreacting since he hadn't even done anything that awful, and neither had he cheated on me. He said that the only thing that he had done wrong was that he had lied to me, but even that was just a white lie so that I wouldn't feel bad. I was pretty pissed off when I saw that text because it just felt like he was trying to downplay the gravity of the situation and gaslight me into believing that whatever he did was okay. So I texted right back saying that yes, I did indeed want a divorce because he was a liar and a cheater, and I was going to make sure that I took away everything in the divorce since he'd forced me to quit my job. He was a little put off by that statement and told me that that was a bit harsh since he had only wanted to make me happy. And then he told me that he didn't want a divorce, and even if it did end up happening, he didn't think that it was fair of me to ask for everything. Apparently, I had always been the one going crazy about our finances and hounding him about money, so I was the one who drove him to this. To be fair, I was just concerned about the future, which is why I was always worried about money, and perhaps it was a little too much for him to handle. He seemed to think it was just a fit with my motives. I didn't mean to free him out with my own paranoid nature, but that's just how I have always been wired. But now I feel like this might be partly on me as well for freaking him out and pushing him into a corner. At least, that's what he's making it sound like. And given my current state of mind, I really don't trust my own judgment because I don't think I am in the right mental or emotional state. Am I the a-hole for freaking my husband out about our finances? Update 1. Hi folks. So I would just like to take a moment to thank everybody who commented on my original post. It really means a lot to me that some of you took the time to actually go into details and everything about your opinions. And thank you to just everybody who commented for all the support, because heaven knows I needed it. It's been a week, and a really difficult one at that, since I left my house and my husband. A couple of days back, I finally found the courage to tell my friend the truth about why I was living with her, and it's safe to say that she was scandalized. Her reaction really made me believe that I was not just going crazy and my parents and my husband were actually trying to gaslight me into believing that all of this was somehow normal and forgivable. She told me that I needed to file for divorce at the earliest and gather all the evidence that I can against him, which might be easy because Sally did leave me with her contact info and I can just reach out to her if I need help. My friend even offered to put me in touch with her parents' divorce lawyer, and I think I might go ahead with that option since her mom got a pretty hefty payout in alimony. So I think that's the best choice for me, especially since both her mother and I have been wronged by our husbands, who chose the company of other women over us. At least her father had been caught cheating with just one woman. I don't even know the count for my husband. My friend also encouraged me to speak up about this to my other friends, in case I needed more help. I don't think I would need it, but I just want to get this off my chest, and I think talking to my friends would really help because keeping this secret from everybody has really taken a toll on my mental health. When I told my friend that I was feeling embarrassed and ashamed of what had happened, she said something that really made me feel a lot better about this situation and put everything into perspective. It was also something that a couple of you in the comments had told me already, and it was that I was the victim here, and I didn't do anything wrong. So I had no reason to feel ashamed of myself because I had done everything in my power to make our marriage work, and he was the one who screwed up. Even his accusation of me being paranoid about money and backing him into a corner was just absurd, because I'm sure there were 1,000 better ways to deal with it rather than going ahead and pulling off something like this. I'm still not comfortable referring to what he did and talking about it, so I keep saying something like this: bear with it, please. I haven't talked to my parents either because I think that what they said on that phone call with them was kind of weird and definitely not the right advice for me. It felt like they were trying to force me to stay in this marriage, despite all the lies, because they, for whatever reason, believe that it's the right thing to do. And I don't really think that I'm misjudging the situation either, because they very clearly mentioned on that last phone call that they thought working it out with my husband would be the right thing to do. I really didn't like that advice, and I think it's best for us to stay apart for a while, because otherwise they will just keep trying to enforce their opinions onto me, and that's not what I need at the moment. Update 2. So I filed for divorce a couple of days ago, and today my husband was served. He had been trying to reach out to me recently and had asked me several times to at least meet with him before I did anything, but it was just too late. He sent me several messages after he was served, talking about how unfair I was being and that I needed to see both sides before I came to such an insane conclusion. To be honest, I didn't understand what his side could possibly be, because he had already told me his reasons and I didn't think that any of them were valid, which is why I went ahead with the divorce in the first place. Had I thought that any of his reasons were even a little legitimate, then I might have entertained the idea of meeting him, trying to talk things out, and whatever. But I couldn't think of anything that he could say that could possibly make me forgive him at this stage. He had lied to me about too many things for me to just get over it. And I don't think I can remain married to a person who I don't even trust anymore, and I can't see us rebuilding that trust again because everything that has happened is just a little too much. I told him that I didn't want to talk to him and I just wanted this to be over, because this was painful for me since now it felt like I was married to a person who I didn't even know, and it was as good as having been with a stranger for these past couple of years. He sent me another text saying that we could still work things out and he had been looking into marriage counselors for us. But in my opinion, it was he who needed therapy, because so far he had always just taken the easy way out, from whatever Sally told me, and also the fact that instead of just sticking to his job and working hard, rising through the ranks, he chose to do something so extreme and then even tried to blame me for it. I was very clear with him, and I told him that no matter what, things would just never work out between us ever again, and he needed to accept that. He lost me because of his own stupidity, and now there was nothing he could do to win me back over. Even if he turned into a better person overnight, I wouldn't be able to trust him. That's just how badly he had screwed up. After that, he didn't say anything, and that was the end of our conversation. But on a slightly happier note, I have started looking for a job, because I have to support myself somehow, and I don't really think I will be able to afford a lawyer if I don't work. I know my parents aren't going to help because they haven't even tried to talk to me after that phone call, and I don't expect them to help either. I do have some money set aside, but that won't last me very long, so I'm back on the job market, and I even have an interview in a couple of days. My friend has been kind to me and has even let me borrow a couple of her work outfits because I had only brought casual clothes with me. She told me that I don't need to worry about paying rent and stuff until I'm back on my feet, and I feel incredibly lucky to have such a great friend like her. Update 3. So that's just 3 days to go before the first negotiation session for the settlement and alimony, and today my husband showed up at my friend's place to try and talk to me in person because I wasn't responding to his texts. I was in the middle of doing laundry when my friend told me that my husband was here, and even offered to force him to leave, in case I didn't want to talk to him. But I decided that I was just going to have a conversation with him and be done with this, once and for all. Because I was getting pretty sick of having to tell him the same thing over and over again, that we couldn't get back together and we couldn't work things out because what he did was unforgivable to me. So my friend confined herself to the bedroom, while my husband and I talked in the living room. Yet again, he started off by apologizing to me, and I cut him off and told him that there was no need for this, because this would just make it 10 times harder for me to go through with the divorce, and that's the last thing that I needed. I told him that I wanted him to understand that whatever he did was not okay with me, and no matter how much he apologized, it wouldn't make things right again, and it definitely wouldn't help because I just couldn't trust him again. And trying to work on a marriage where I didn't even trust the guy I was married to seemed pretty meaningless to me. So he needed to stop contacting me every couple of days, trying to get me to change my mind because it just wasn't going to work. And then he started crying and told me that he loved me and he just wanted me to forgive him this one time. It was really hard for me because I loved him too, but I couldn't forget him at the cost of my own dignity. Then we went silent for a while, after which he got to his feet abruptly and wiped his face. And then he told me that he'd see me with his lawyer in a couple of days and stormed out of the house. I was kind of shocked, but I guess he finally realized that crying and begging me to take him back was not going to work anymore. I was sad after he left, but mostly just relieved, because this just meant that I could go all out, and I wouldn't even have to feel bad about it. Because now, we are officially over. So yeah, I guess I will see him in court.